What's up, guys? Jaydaniel here, and this is the Sales at Home podcast. Today, Victor brought in some special guests for a very interesting episode. Why don't you run them down? What's about to go down?
So, guys, it is Ladies' Night on the Sales at Home podcast, and we are here to talk all about women in sales. And I've brought on two of some of my favorite women in sales, Nathalie and Reem. Both of them are killing it in their respective areas in this field. But we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about women in sales and a little bit of what they have to go through in order to be a woman in sales. What's up, guys?
Hello.
What is up?
So, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. I know that you guys are busy and you guys have things you're doing. I know Reem's been killing it on her offer. I know Natalie's got like 6 offers she's working on. But I just wanted to bring you guys on just to kind of celebrate what you guys have accomplished, but also celebrate women in sales and celebrate what is, the potential for women in sales. And I know it's a male-dominated arena. It's a lot of bros, right? And so what do you guys think the potential is for women to come into this male-dominated, this bro-dominated space and actually dominate yourselves?
Well, I mean, I can certainly share. Something that I talk about quite often in my journey. I mean, I started in this industry, I guess, in May of last year. So it's been 1.5 years. And at the beginning of this entire thing, I think one of the biggest reasons why I wasn't seeing the success that I necessarily wanted to right away is because I was really trying very hard to adapt to what I thought I should be. And what I thought I should be was someone that was very masculine, almost like aggressive, right? Because that was the sales culture that I was exposed to on a lot of the different offers that I was on. And so that first led me to pursuing, the more that I did the things that didn't align with me, the more that I realized what was aligned with me, right? So then eventually I started working. I knew for a fact that I just wanted to work with female entrepreneurs, be on all female teams. And the more that I did that, the more I realized that there was actually a place in this industry for my specific energy. So that's the first thing. I mean, I'm happy that I went through that journey because it developed that conviction in what it is exactly that I'm looking for and what I specifically have to offer. But it's still been a journey because I think that a lot of the people that I've gotten sales training from they're male. So even though I love the way that they are wording things, I love the way that they ask questions, I love their training, and I think that it's so valuable, but I was trying so hard to emulate that. It just was never really authentic for me, right? So the more that I actually, and I'll never forget when I started doing more less of that and more of what I actually wanted to do, that's really when I started to realize that, okay, maybe there's a place in this industry for what I specifically have to offer. And again, developing that conviction, because the more that I did that, the better results that I got. So I think that there is a place for my biggest takeaway is really that there is no one size fits all when it comes to sales. So as much as I love and admire so many of the people that I am learning from, and I try and implement a lot of the things that I see and hear them do, it's really bringing my own flavor to it and making it my own somehow. And so not being so focused on, okay, what should I sound like because he says it this way, or how should I ask this question? Like really, the more that I released that and those expectations of what I thought that I should be, that's when I started getting better results. So I will say that when it comes to women specifically, there's a lot of different qualities that we specifically can bring to sales calls. And I really just want to encourage more women to get out of their heads and it's okay if you're not following what you think you should sound like, because sometimes those rules are very generic and it's not always going to work for you. And that's actually fine, because I'm getting, on my current sales team, there's half men, half women, and we're all getting the same results, but the way that we're getting those results sounds and looks very different. So there's clearly room for all of us to win, right?
Awesome. Reem, what would you say to the same question? Like, what would you think is the benefit of being a woman in sales?
Yeah, absolutely. Natalie had some great points, and I'm totally agreeing with her. And just, I think that there's really a great place for women. I think we're just getting started. And, I just feel like I've received training too, and I just feel like when I try to when I try to emulate them, I don't come across to myself, and I just think that when you bring your authenticity into it, that's when you can really shine. And there's a huge space for women. I think we're just getting started, and I think it's only going to grow from here. So.
Nice. You guys both talk about authenticity, and I think that for the salesperson in general, authenticity is one of the most underrated tools that people do not use. Like, they don't use it. Everyone tries to be a cookie cutter of the next person. Everyone tries to sound like their mentor or their sales trainer, and they're missing out on that authenticity. And that authenticity reaches out to certain people differently and attracts certain people differently. So I think that naturally being a woman, naturally being different than what you're told, what you're taught, who's teaching you, just the natural difference is a benefit, because it allows you to, like you said, adapt your own style and your own personality and your own way of thinking into things. And I mean, let's be honest, we think differently. Men and women think differently, and that's okay. And we have to embrace that, because the way you think might help me solve something here, or the way I think, I can only solve it this way. So I think it's really beneficial to have that mindset of authenticity, and being a woman, it naturally comes. So you guys have both been in sales for a while, and you've been dealing with being a woman in sales and all the challenges that come with it. But Nat, what would you say are some of the bigger challenges that you've had in the space?
Well, that was definitely the one that I just shared, is really finding my own voice. And I mean, listen, it took me over a year to find my actual voice. So I don't think that that's an easy journey, but that, like, really figuring out what that looked like and felt like for me, that was key. Also, just overcoming bad offer selection. Like that, I think I was a poster child for bad offer selection for a solid 9 months. I mean, Vic knows. So that was definitely a challenge. And I think those would probably be my biggest ones. It's really, I like to take the hard road, because that's the only way that I learn, unfortunately. So, but it's okay. I came out on top.
Jaydaniel, she says bad offer selection, but that's because she had so many offers coming at her. She was taking whatever came to her. And then she's like, no, this isn't working. No, this isn't working. No, this isn't working. But she had like 6 offers at a time. And then she's like, I don't know what to do with it. And
Yeah.
I think that's also the benefit of being a woman in sales with your own brand. And both of you have your own style, your own unique brand that calls to who you are. And I think that's so cool. It's so unique that someone is coming to you. I mean, me and Jaydaniel talk about it all the time, like putting yourself out there, making sure that you're talking to the right people, making sure that you're positioning yourself right. And you both do it so well that there's offers coming to you. There's people who are attracted to you, not just because that you're a woman, but they're attracted to your brand and your personality and who you are. And that's where I think it gets a little bit tricky, a little bit hairy, because you have people who are attracted to your brand, and then you naturally have people who are attracted to you. And I think that's where it gets a little sticky. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation tonight, because I know that both of you have gotten some creeps in the DMs. Both of you have gotten some people sliding in who don't know how to slide out, and there's issues. And it's hard to deal with. I mean, as pretty as Jaydaniel is, I'm not sure that he's got a bunch of people in his DMs being lewd and just downright things that they would never say to him in person. Everything that comes in his DMs, people would say straight to his face. I think
only the occasional message or two.
So are you guys willing to share some of these like creeps and some of the things that get said to you?
I mean, listen, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to do it, because that's not part of my brand, if you will. But what I will say is, I think that when you talk about struggles, I think that sometimes men in particular, misconstrue kindness and someone who is very friendly as potentially being interested, which I don't really know how those two things correlate, because I've never even met you in person. So how do you even, you know what I mean? But I also have this theory that a lot of men have the assumption that any and every woman is going to love being complimented and that is going to be reciprocated, and that it should be reciprocated in a strange way. So I've definitely had a lot of messages from people who I think there's different strategies in place, right? Like they're complimenting you first and foremost about what it is that you do. Like it's a very generic, and then it starts getting a little bit weird from there on out. And I don't really know how to like navigate the conversation because again, I don't think that I'm a rude person, but one of the things too is when people are really persistent with their messaging, even when you're being I think that I'm being very passive and I'm not a very assertive person by nature. So I'll tend to just maybe send like a like emoji or just ignore it altogether. Maybe just send like an LOL. But they don't necessarily take that as, okay, but maybe she's not interested or maybe she doesn't like that. They just never really make that connection. So a lot of people, who will say, oh, we're both in the same industry, and then you respond and they call you right away on Facebook Messenger. Or yeah, and it's like if you ignore, and Facebook Messenger rings for like 25 times before it actually says that this person hasn't answered. So they'll do that, 18 times in a row. And you're like, I'm not comfortable having a video conversation with you. Or people who just make comments about your appearance. I had a lot of people do that. And
Natalie, can I just pause you for a second? Because I just like that's the way you succeed in sales is by being socially aware enough to understand like social cues. So like it's funny because I'm so sure that 90% of those people that are doing all this weird shit, like failing any offer they get on. Employers, they're the ones that complain. They're the ones that like if they do join a program, most likely they're too scared to join any program, but if they do join one, they're gonna fuck about and not get results. That's insane. Continue.
It's really crazy. And I also think, I think that a lot of men, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be, because here's the thing is the men that I respect the most are like guys like you who actually understand that there's, issues. But I think that there's a lot of men who just think, oh, any woman would be happy to hear from me. So they have this assumption that anyone is going to be open to receiving these types of messages. And they actually do lack the self-awareness of knowing maybe this isn't appropriate, or maybe she doesn't want to hear from me. So there's been a lot of strange comments. I think the ones that make me the most uncomfortable are certainly the ones that comment on my appearance, because it does not impact my ability to show up in my role. It doesn't impact my ability to perform. It doesn't impact my ability to network. But I think that, those comments are typically the ones that make me the most uncomfortable because I don't know how to navigate it. I really don't. So that's my take on it.
Man, and don't you like Victor, like from a guy's perspective, right? Like when you put a message out there like that, like that's your reputation, like that's your brand too, because people talk, like people do talk. Like you seen this guy, he send me a dick, like you know what I mean, like that's crazy.
It's such a small industry too, like
it is. It's an echo chamber.
Yeah, it really is. And so like what you're putting out there is going to get around, and it's like, to me, it blows my mind to think that there are people out there, and I understand that there are, but it blows my mind to think that there are people out there like thinking this is okay, right? Thinking that it's okay to get in a woman's DMs and say anything other than what you're here to talk about, what you're focused on, especially if you haven't built a relationship, right? Especially if you haven't built like a working, talking friendship relationship. If you're saying anything outside of what you're like work, then what are you doing? Like, why? What's the purpose? What's the point?
And so I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody like shooting their shot, but I think you need to have social awareness, right? Like, okay, they're not interested. Okay, I'm fucking like we're on Messenger and they're here for business. Like, I just think you need social awareness in general,
Like, I think here's the thing about shooting your shot though. Like, not everyone's meant to
go on Tinder. just keep going.
Not everyone's meant to play on every court. So like,
and not only that, but what I will say is like something that I've actually said, like, what do you think is going to happen? We live in two different countries. I'm in Canada. Like, what do you actually think is going to happen? And so I think it's
Americans.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't really know like who else is getting these. And what I will say, something that will shock you guys, is that I actually get like photos, not just inappropriate DMs. I get like videos, I get unsolicited photos. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? You think I'm just gonna make this into my wallpaper? Like I have no desire to talk to you, let alone have a photo of you on my phone. So it's really interesting that I think that people do, unfortunately, I don't know. I think that it's a gray area. Yes, you want to, come across a certain way and shoot your shot, but I mean, there's a time and a place. And if they just aren't able to pick up on those social cues, like, this person doesn't show that she's interested, but I'm going to try anyways. Like maybe, she hasn't been responsive to my messages, but if I send her a video, I'm definitely going to get a response. Like, I just don't understand the logic. I really don't. Wow. So it's crazy.
What kind of videos and photos are we talking about?
We're not getting monetized.
Yeah, I'm talking like I've gotten gym selfies, I've gotten like videos of them playing like the instrument that they play. I've gotten videos like instead of sending me a written DM, it'll be a video one, which I guess that's fine, but just yeah, it's the gym selfies, it's them like working out, it's them, it's bizarre, y'all. It's very strange.
What about you, Reem? I feel like Reem has just like,
yeah, she's shaking her head and she's like, yep.
Trauma.
Trauma.
Have you had the same experience, Reem?
Very similar, yes. I think men really misconstrue networking and being friendly. It's the same thing. For me, I think of it as networking, but they don't really think of it that way most of the time. And I feel like women have to work a lot harder to get that respect in the industry. And I've very similar situation to Nathalie, where I'm constantly getting hit on, or and I either just like tread very lightly or I just ignore. And I've had men in the sales space, people you probably know, ask me very strange questions. And I'm not gonna name names, but yeah, I ignore it. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten the gym selfies too, and it's very not tricky, but it's just like I'm like, how do I handle this? Like, the best thing I can do really is ignore, right? But again, they really confuse like networking and being polite versus just getting hit on.
So I've got a kind of serious question, because I've been out of the game for a while. So is this what it's actually like outside of the industry? Do people actually do this? Like, do you have people who know you from outside, or getting to know you from outside of the sales industry do this to you, or is this just a sales industry thing?
Honestly, I would say it's both. Just while Reem was talking, I was actually thinking about specific examples on my Instagram of people who continue to engage with my stories, who continue to send me messages, even though it has never once, like it's a very one-sided conversation. If you were to pull up the DMs, never once have I ever engaged back. I've never once responded, but 25 messages deep, they're still thinking, 26 is going to be the lucky one. She's going to answer after I send, a 26 message. So even though it's very one-sided, they just don't pick up on that either. Like, they're relentless. So even outside of the sales industry, I will say, I think that it makes it easier sometimes when it comes to sales, because you have something that can kind of get you in the door. You already know that you have something in common. But personally, it's been outside of the industry as well that you get this type of messaging.
It's got to be frustrating. Like, I'm frustrated, like, just thinking about it. So I know it's got to be frustrating for you when it's coming into, all right, I'm coming into the sales space, I'm trying to establish my legitimacy, I'm already fighting an uphill battle because I'm coming into a male-dominated space, and I'm trying to show my personality and my skill and my ability, and I'm trying to network, and then people are misconstruing what I'm doing and throwing it into, okay, let me try to shoot my shot with this girl and see what happens. So I can understand that's got to be frustrating. what are, like you guys have said, you ignore it, you kind of go passive with it, but has there been situations where you've had to shut it down completely and be like, hey, this is very inappropriate?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, Reem can probably share, but for me, like because I'm not a very confrontational person, and I'm not very assertive, like you guys know this about me, but the block, like listen, if you're coming into, as far as I'm concerned, like my social media platform, that's my platform, that's my territory, and I can navigate it however I want. And so if I feel like I have to just block you, that's what I'll do. And I don't owe you an explanation, and I don't have to justify that decision. I think when it gets a little bit tricky is when there is kind of like an existing relationship, because we either know each other from the same program, or maybe we know each other from a previous offer. That's when it gets a little bit, a little bit trickier. But if I have no previous connection to you, I will just block you. And again, I don't feel like I have to justify why I'm doing that.
Reem?
Yeah, no, I've definitely
I told people to fuck off. Like, hey, you.
I mean, it's great therapy, just yeah, no. I've hit the block button. Sometimes it gets to a point where like they're calling me 10 times a day and they're messaging and messaging. And you just have no choice but to like block, delete. Again, it's very similar to what Nathalie said. If there's no existing connection, if you were a certain like mentorship together or program or course or offer, it gets a little bit tricky there, but for the most part, I'm not afraid to block. So
Huh. So for both of you guys, I kind of noticed like you mentioned you're not that assertive, but you two are doing good in sales, right? So I'm curious. That's because that's the perception on the outside, right? To sell, you have to be assertive, you have to be like this monster, whatever. Um, how just from your experiences, and you can just go one at a time. But what do you feel like has allowed you to succeed in sales despite not being like as assertive as maybe some other people?
I mean, for me personally, and again, this goes back to my original point of I kind of go against the grain of what we have been taught, right? So people are like, oh, don't bother with rapport. You're not there to be their friend. I'm literally the exact opposite. The reason why my close rate is as high as it is because I actually do become their friend. And really, I actually stay connected with most of the women that I enroll in our program. Like they follow me after and we stay very, very connected. And I do a little too much rapport. I'm going to be honest. Like we spend a lot of time just talking about life to the point where literally like a lot of my clients or the people that I've enrolled like know that I'm currently in Mexico. They're sending me DMs like asking me like how everything is going, traveling by myself. So I mean, I literally do that, and that is what works for me. And I will say, like when I know when to be assertive, but I do it in like the way that I hold my friends accountable. So something that one of my coaches told me is objections really are just walking through concerns with a friend, right? And that was a really great reframe for me because I'm like, it's so true. If one of my friends was going through a problem and I knew that they were looking for help and support in that specific area, and I knew that it was right for them, I would do whatever I could to get them over the finish line, right? So that's very much how I navigate. And I do actually a lot of coaching on my calls. Over the weekend, had one where we objection handled, but it was just me coaching her for 15 minutes until she actually said, okay, you know what? Let's do it. Let's just do it. So I do think that being assertive can take on kind of different modalities. And so the way that I'm assertive is really like telling them, what they need to hear in that moment, but from a friend's perspective, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. Anything to add to that, Reem?
yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of like confrontation, it's more so I think there's a time and a place. But more so, I'm just so focused on moving forward in my mission that I just don't think about like the minute stuff, like getting hit on, things like that. But yeah, like for me, it's more about like I love like nurturing relationships. So that's more so what I focus on versus like the small stuff that won't matter in a year. So, if it gets to a point where I have to hit the block button, I'll do that. But, I just focus on moving forward. So that's my main thing. So
Don't let it fool you, dude. Reem's a cold hard killer. See the
Sounds
cold.
like you guys are doing some work on that other account. So
So here's my thinking when I hear all of this. I hear, all of the influx of things that you guys deal with on a daily basis. It brings two questions to mind. One, is this like how often is this happening? And two, is it wrong to publicly blast somebody like that? And what are your takes on that?
Yeah. Do you want to share this? I was just going to say, I mean, I would say that this happens like on a strict, like it happens on a daily basis. Daily, yeah, you're getting some sort of strange message daily. And you got to think too, like the larger your network, the larger your reach, the more opportunity for these people to kind of get into your ecosystem, right? But I think that you just develop some sort of resilience against that. Like when it happens, you're like, I'm just going to ignore this person. I'm going to block them right away. You just learn to identify what you will and will not tolerate and pay attention to, because I think it just comes down to protecting your energy. I'm like, I don't have time to be defending myself. So that's also the other thing too. It's like I could be assertive, but really it's like not worth my time or energy. I would rather just devote my time and energy to things that are actually going to move me forward, right? And what I prioritize. So that would be the first thing. But also, sometimes you get messages that are quite, and I've blasted people in the past, but I've posted it. Maybe if it was something that was like really, really inappropriate, but for the most part, I don't like to give it that much attention. And I know that that's probably like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want to talk about it, hence, why we're having this conversation now. But on the other hand, it's like, do you really want to put, time and energy and attention onto something that is so stupid at the same time? So it's kind of like navigating the duality of that. But when I have blasted someone, I don't do it in like a vengeful way. And I always block out their name, their photo, because it's just not my character to throw someone under the bus. But I do think that these conversations are important to have, especially when the comments are very inappropriate and uncalled for, or maybe the way that they have responded to me saying like, no, thank you. When they come back and say something like F off or F you, I'm like, okay, cool. So situations like that, I actually have posted that. But it's a very, very small percentage of time that I've done that. Because again, I don't want to give it my time and energy. And I always I don't name names. I've never named names ever.
Yeah, it's interesting because I ask because I being a typical male, right? I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm like, oh, you gotta fix this. There's a problem, you gotta fix it. But the reality of it is that this is what you guys deal with. And this is what you go through. And there's no amount of public shaming that's gonna fix this. It's just gonna add more fuel to the fire, in my opinion. But I think this is why we have conversations like this, to bring awareness to the fact that there are people out there taking advantage of a situation, taking advantage of networking, taking advantage of you in a way that's inappropriate and in a way that shouldn't happen in this industry. And we talk about bringing more women into the space. We talk about the power of women in the space. We talk about, how some of the most productive closers that I know are women. Some of the most productive salespeople I know are women. And so in that vein, like they're dealing with all of this on the side. How much more productive could they be if this wasn't an issue? Right. And that's where my mind goes. And so the only way that I can fix it, like I want to, like, deep inside, I'm just, I want to fix it. The only way that I can do that is to bring attention to it, like we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think too, like Natalie, something you mentioned earlier is like, as you grow and you get more attention, your network grows, right? More people see you. I think there's always going to be low quality humans, and I say that in a serious way, right? Like, for example, when I had I have a YouTube channel, like separate from this one, and as the channel started growing, I've literally blocked hundreds of people because they're like, they're just throwing insult and hate, right? And so like I think that's gonna happen regardless. So in just my opinion, for somebody coming into business or a woman who wants to get into sales, like keep in mind like you're gonna have to get pretty good at like giving people the stiff arm, you know, because I see people who get comments like that, either hateful or really, really lustful or weird, and they'll obsess over it, and they're not putting their time and attention into growth, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's an excellent point. And the other thing too that I will add, like as a piggyback to that, is of course there's always going to be those people who are going to see an opportunity, and that's a reflection on them. It's not something that I personally take, to heart. But what I will say too is the more that I have focused on my brand and really making my core values very, very evident, I think that you actually, the more consistent you are with building up your reputation around those core tenets, those key pillars, and they're positive pillars, I think, the less I actually do attract those people who are going to be mean or hateful or vengeful. Of course, they're going to slip through the cracks. That's just, unfortunately, that's the name of the game. But for the most part, I think that what you put out is ultimately what you're going to attract. And so I will say that is that, I focus more of my time, more of my energy on the people that I do want to attract. And that's ultimately what I actually end up attracting. So yeah, I want to say that.
huge.
Yeah, I love it because, like I said, you guys both have your brands that you've built. You guys both have your directions, your clientele that you attract. And I think that when people see that, they can either think one or two things, and it's either one is a reflection of them, right? They can think, oh man, she's attractive. Let me try to get to know her a little bit more and see what she's doing. Or, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. Let me listen to what she's actually saying and take in what she's saying. And I think that hearing you guys talk about it, hearing you guys talk about your experiences and what you're going through and how you're working through it and working past it and not letting it define you and not letting it like mess with you too much. I think it's not only helpful to men out there who are watching thinking like, okay, I shouldn't attract, but it's also helpful to the women out there who are like, man, I'm dealing with this kind of same thing. But I'm like in my head about it. I think about it all the time. Like, I don't want to get on the internet. Like, I don't want to, put myself out there. My personal brand lacks because I'm attracting different people. It's also very helpful to them as well, because it's like, wait a second, here's two people with two very strong personal brands, and they're making it work, even in spite of everything else, in spite of all the drama that's coming with it. They're fine tuning it to where they're filtering out all of that, but also they're still being productive. And I think this could be used as an excuse for some women who could be awesome in sales to not be, because they're letting something come like this creep in and they're not focusing on growth, like Jaydaniel said.
Yeah. And that's an excellent point. I think that that's also, one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this conversation, because as much as I don't pay attention to it, I think that it's really important for other women to know that they're not the only ones that are experiencing it. Because a lot of times I have actually felt like, I think potentially I've got to be the weird one. Like maybe I'm attracting all these people for a reason. Like it's got to be me. And so I don't really talk about it at all with anyone, because I don't want it to, appear like I'm, again, throwing shade at anyone or throwing anyone under the bus. The other thing that I wanted to say is it can be really disheartening for a lot of women, because they feel like this is going to be their experience and all men are X, Y, and Z. And something that I always say and I really emphasize is, as much as my brand is very much built and centered around supporting women in this industry and bringing more women into this industry, it's been a core mission of mine all year. One of the reasons why I think I am as, quote unquote, successful as I am in this industry is because of the men that I surround myself with. So I really want to make that very, very clear, because as much as there's a lot of people out there, a lot of men out there who are just doing some god awful things, the men in my life, and I mean, some of the men that I admire the most in this industry, I talk to on a daily basis. I talk to on a regular basis. They're in UCM. So I do want to say that it's high integrity men that I attract and that I talk to. And they're one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest things that I talk about why I've seen the success that I've seen is because I've seen men who understand, who want to facilitate these conversations, who want to support women getting into sales, who want to support what we stand for and what we bring to the table. And I think that that's also a really important conversation to have, is that not all men are, this way, that there are actually men out there who have a very strong mission that aligns with what it is that we want to accomplish. And so, I mean, I even think about men like you guys, and like I said, the majority of the men that I admire the most in this space are within UCM, I will say, or I work with directly. So there are definitely men who support my mission, and that's why I gravitate towards them. So I really do thank you guys so much for opening up this space. But I really want to take the opportunity to say, like, you guys are the reason why there are women who can actually really succeed in this industry, because we have your full support, and you guys, go to bat for us on a day-to-day basis. So I think that deserves to be celebrated as well.
Last thing I'll say to that is that I talked to both of you kind of like at the beginning of your UCM journey. Like, Nat, we had a conversation when you first came on. You're very skeptical. You're a totally different person now than you were then.
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell even then, like, my excitement that you were coming in, because I see things in both of you that this industry needs. I see things in both of you that are beacons to everyone out there that, hey, this can work. You can do this. You can, break the norm and come into a male-dominated industry. You can thrive and survive and be like awesome at it, and not compromise or not like ruin your integrity for doing so. And working with both of you in various different arenas and areas, I've seen the tenacity that you guys bring in your own way, and it's inspiring to me. It's like, oh, hey, Reem just took like 80 more calls, let me just get on another call today. Or Nat's over here with her, she just posted like 6 more things, let me just go and do something, right? It's like the effort that you guys put into being successful is vastly underrated. And I think that it's so inspirational, not just to the women out there, but also to us guys who are paying attention, us guys who are cheering you on, us guys who are in your corner. It's very, very inspirational to us. And you make it easy for us to be in your corner and to be cheering you on, because you guys are killing it, and we appreciate that. We appreciate the work that you guys do. We appreciate the effort you put into your work. And Jaydaniel and I thank you for coming on to the podcast tonight and for talking through some of these uncomfortable issues, because if you don't tell us, we don't know, right? I'm sitting here like, man, I got a DM like a year ago.
Yeah, and it still lives in your head rent free. Exactly. 1 year ago.
Exactly. I bring it up and I flash it to my wife every now and then. See?
Yeah. Someone else wants me.
And she's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Like, it's just, it's refreshing to have you guys here and to hear your stories, but also get to know you guys outside of this and celebrate what you guys are doing out there. And I thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I know Jaydaniel does as well.
Yeah, you guys put me to shame with the content. I see both of you guys. I'm like, damn it.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, here's the thing, right? So I was like, all right, Nat's doing her thing. I'm never gonna touch Nat. And then I flipped through my stories, and then Reem's like, hi, it's your self-development nerd. I'm like, oh, you gotta get back into this. You gotta get back into this. This is ridiculous.
No, it's really good stuff, and this was really fun. Thank you guys for coming on. Man, we gotta get like an ending slide. Yeah. All right, guys, podcast over. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.